Ladies and gentlemen, today we will be taking a look at the next paragraph in our argumentative writing essay that we are doing as preparation for the PSSA English Language Arts open-ended written section. So I'm going to be using the example that I've been presenting throughout the past few weeks here to give you an example of what this next paragraph will look like, and then you will use this to model in your own paragraph. Today we're going to be looking at what's called a counter argument. So as a quick recap, you should have your introductory paragraph completed. This follows the funnel model where you start with a broad, unconnected statement. You go into some details that are narrowing it down to finally your thesis statement. The thesis statement is your idea, your side of the argument clearly stated, and then providing 2 to 3 reasons why you believe your side of the argument. After we did that, we constructed our body paragraph 1, and our body paragraph 1 started with our first reason from our thesis statement, stated by itself as a topic sentence. You then introduced evidence to support that topic sentence. You explained the evidence and examples. You discussed how it tied back to your main idea. And finally, you created a transition into the next paragraph. After this paragraph, you completed your body paragraph 2, again starting with a topic sentence, which is your reason 2 of your thesis statement stated by itself as a sentence. You again introduced evidence, you explained the evidence and examples, you discussed how it tied back to your main idea, your side of the argument, and you transitioned into the counter argument. All 3 of these paragraphs should now be turned into eBackpack, and they should also be saved in My Files. Today, after watching this video, you will open up your constructed paragraphs from My Files, and you will add on your 4th paragraph today, which is going to be the counter argument. In eBackpack, I've provided some resources for you that give you a definition of what a counter argument is. It gives you some do's and some don'ts that you should consider, and it also gives you the components of a strong counter argument. So there'll be 3 pieces that we're looking at today. For our definition of a counter argument here, and this goes along with argumentative essays, a counter argument is going to be a portion of an argument that addresses the opposite side of yours. It addresses the opposing viewpoint. The counter-argument helps to establish credibility by showing the reader that the writer is well-informed, that the writer is open-minded, that the writer does know that there are pieces of evidence against him or her, but that he or she addresses it and understands it and uses a rebuttal to show why it doesn't make sense or why it's not as strong as his or her side of the argument. So taking a look at some do's. Do's, you are going to anticipate and address the opposing points from the other side of the argument. You're going to limit the number of opposing points that you're addressing to 1 to 3. For us today, we're only going to be addressing 1 opposing point or 1 claim, 1 piece of evidence the other side has against you. It should be the most reasonable and or the most popular of opposing points. You're going to focus only on the key ideas of the opposing points. You're not going to get into all the small details that the opposing points bring up. You're going to, if possible, reveal the source of the opposing points. So who is this point coming from? Is it coming from an organization? Is it coming from a team of people? Is it coming from individuals? Where does this come from? For your don't, for the counter argument, you do not want to mock or disrespect the opposition's point of view. You want to avoid doing that because it discredits your credibility. It makes you seem immature if you are disrespecting or mocking the other side of the argument. You do not want to admit any parts of the counter argument that are important, meaning you don't want to leave out any key points that the opposition is making against you. You do not want to reuse this specific evidence anywhere else in your paper. It is only to be addressed in the counter argument section. And you do not want to allow this to shift your focus or kind of distract from your main idea. So these are the main do's and don'ts and the definition for counter argument. Now there are 2 specific pieces that we're going to be using in a counter argument, and there's a third piece that kind of plays in with the first two. So whenever you're creating a counter argument, the first thing you start with is what's called a concession. And a concession acknowledges one or more of the oppositions, that's the other side of the argument's best claims against you, the best point the other side of the argument has. When you address that, when you acknowledge it, it's called a concession. So in order to create a concession, you are going to use language such as, although this side of the argument believes this, it's wrong because, or nevertheless, this is still incorrect because, and then you'll explain it, or whereas some people believe blank, they are wrong because blank, or while some people believe blank, it's not the best side of the argument because blank. So these are some words, these are some key buzzwords that you would want to integrate into your concession. Once you actually acknowledge the opposition's best point that they have against you, once you have your concession, you're going to move into what's called a rebuttal. And a rebuttal is the argument against your opponent based on the point that you raised in the concession. So the rebuttal is whenever you basically are saying why the opposition's point does not make sense, or why the opposition's point is not as strong as yours. So respectful rebuttals are created with language that functions and transitions into the writer's own argument, evidence, and explanations. The rebuttal should take up the majority of the counter argument. So when we're color coding our paragraph today, and I want you to color code yours so that you can visually see how it matches up with this, you're going to have a smaller piece of writing that's the concession, your sentence that's basically a topic sentence here, introducing the best point the other side makes, and then you're going to also color code the rebuttal, which is how you are addressing that point, how you're saying it's not as strong as your side of the argument, and that should be the majority of the paragraph. So those are the two main components of the counter argument, is the concession and the rebuttal. There's a third piece that we want to keep in mind here, which is called cohesion. And cohesion is going to be unity in the paragraph, meaning that you're using transitional words, you're using synonyms, you're using repetition, you're staying on topic, you're staying on focus. You're not letting the concession or the rebuttal kind of veer you off course of what your argument is and what your side of that is. So it should tie back your own ideas to those of the counter argument, those of the thesis statement, and that's what's called creating cohesion. So I would like you in your paragraph today to underline words that you think are creating cohesion, that are either transitional words, synonyms, or repetition. And I've done that in my example to show you. So keep this out and use this while you're crafting your paragraph today. Taking a look at my example, I already have it written here. The counter argument, you'll notice just looking at it right now, we're seeing that the rebuttal is the majority of the paragraph. Most of the paragraph is orange. So this visually shows you how this is set up as the majority here. So my thesis statement here is, while some students should not focus on particular areas of study because doing so could prevent students from discovering their strengths and interests, and it could cause students who are interested in an area which is not being focused on to become disinterested in school. So my argument, my side of the argument, is that schools should not only focus on one area of study. So now, in my counter argument for my concession, I'm going to address the opposition. So I'm going to bring up a point that says that schools should focus on only small areas of study, and I'm going to come up with the best reason why the opposition has for believing this. So for my concession, I wrote, although some believe that schools should focus only on the mathematic and scientific areas of study because they help students find more important jobs after graduation, this is not true. I have some underlined words here that are helping with my cohesion. I have a transition word, although. I have a word that's building onto this idea, because. So those are creating cohesion. Now that I've stated the best point the opposition makes, I have to tear it apart. I have to tell you why this is not true, or why this is not as strong as my side of the argument. This is called the rebuttal. So I wrote, Jobs in journalism, entrepreneurism, and public relations are just as important and just as significant as jobs in the science and math fields. These areas are connected to English and art content and therefore prove that science and math fields are not the only source of job security for students in the future. Additionally, I'm building on my point here, so this is creating cohesion. I have a transitional word. Additionally, if students were to only choose a job focus area because they thought it was important, they would never truly be happy with their work. Students should choose fields they are captivated by so that they are not only successful but also content. Okay, so I am using transitional words. I am using synonyms, important, significant. I'm repeating these ideas to create some cohesion, and I'm tying it back to the ideas that I myself have been presenting in my thesis statement. So this is what your paragraph should look like today. You should have a green piece for cohesion, where you are bringing out the best point the opposition makes. You should create a rebuttal, which is why this idea of the opposite side is not as strong as yours, or where there are holes in the argument, or where there are pieces that don't add up. And you are also going to make sure that you have cohesion by using transitional words as synonyms and repetition. So I want you to color code your concession today green, your rebuttal orange, and I want you to underline words that are creating cohesion. This is going to be due next Wednesday, so you do not have to finish it today. You can start it today and work on it in class when you have extra time. However, this will be due next Wednesday, November the 9th. So please save it to my files when you're done, and also submit it through eBackpack.